Hi everyone, it's Carolyn from True Crime Chat with Mommy Ramblings. Good morning. It's August 3rd, 2020, and we're going to cover the Chad Guy Daybell preliminary hearing, which began at 9 a.m. this morning in Idaho. So let's take a look at what's going on here. If you're brand new to our channel, you know court cases is something that we cover, and we've been covering the Daybell case all along here. If that's something you're interested in, I would encourage you to click on the subscribe button in the lower corner of the video because you won't want to miss our coverage, and also you'd like to become part of the best community on YouTube. So let's go on and see what's going on here in the morning session. I will give updates throughout the day. So Chad Guy Daybell's preliminary hearing began this morning at 9 a.m. with Judge Farron Edens presiding. There are 2 days booked out for this hearing, August 3rd and 4th, and it's in regard to Chad's charges. Chad is charged with 2 felony counts of conspiracy to commit destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence, and 2 felony counts of destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. Chad was arrested on June 9th after the remains of Joshua J.J. Vallow, age 7, and Tylee Ryan, age 16, were found buried on his property. Since then, he's been appearing in court hearings from the Fremont County Jail via Zoom, but now he and his attorney, John Pryor, are there in person along with the Madison County Prosecuting Attorney, Rob Wood. And Rob Wood is the appointed special prosecutor in this case. So let's look at what's been happening. The preliminary hearing got underway at 9:10 a.m. Chad is wearing a white shirt and tie. His attorney, John Pryor, asked to discuss a matter. Judge Farron Edens asked they take the issue into his chambers, and they went on a short recess. They were back at 9:15 a.m. with the first witness being called, and it's Rexburg Police Detective Ray Hermosillo. He's been investigating the case since JJ and Tylee were first reported missing and has worked as a police officer for 19 years. Hermosillo says in early November he was asked to seize a Jeep by the Gilbert Police Department that was in Lori Vallow's possession. He was asked to do a welfare check on November 25th of 2019 on Joshua J.J. Vallow, and Ray Hermosillo says he had never met JJ or Tylee Ryan. Rob Wood introduced exhibits including the birth certificate and adoption records of Kanan Trahan. Kanan's name was then changed to Joshua J.J. Vallow. His birth date is May 25th, 2012. Rob Wood also introduces the birth certificate of Tylee Ryan. Parents are Joseph Ryan and Lori Noreen Cox. Wood then introduced the marriage certificate of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow and the date of their marriage, November 5th, 2019. Ray Hermosillo says that he went to do a welfare check on November 26th. He says that Alex Cox and Chad Daybell were at the house, but Alex said Lori was not home. Ray Hermosillo then asked if JJ was home, and Alex told the detective that JJ was with Kay Woodcock in Louisiana. Hermosillo asked Alex Cox for Lori's phone number, and Alex said he didn't have it. Hermosillo asked Chad Daybell when he last saw JJ Daybell, and he said he saw the child in apartment 107, which is Alex Cox's unit, in October. So Hermosillo then asked Chad for Lori's phone number, and Chad told Hermosillo that he didn't have it. Hermosillo thought that was odd because he knew they had a close relationship. Chad said he only knew Lori because they had met a couple of times through Alex Cox. A few minutes later, Chad gave the detective Lori's phone number. And when Ray Hermosillo asked why he didn't provide the number earlier, Chad says, well, it was because it sounded like he was being accused of something. Other officers were called, and Ray Hermosillo called Lieutenant Ron Ball, and Lieutenant Ball told him that he needed to get a search warrant. JJ was never located that day, and Ray Hermosillo testifies that their interactions that day were recorded on body cameras. Now, Chad's attorney Pryor asked the judge to approach the bench. Ray Hermosillo said that on November 27, 2019, a search warrant was obtained for apartments 175, 174, and 107. These were rented to Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, and Melanie Boudreau. The warrant was for J.J. Vallow, as police were unaware of Tylee Ryan being missing or anything at that point. In Unit 175, Ray says they found a suitcase with JJ's name on it and a half-filled prescription bottle of his medication with JJ's name on it. In Unit 175, found strange that there was no clothing in the closets and indicated that the hangers were just hanging there without any clothing, and that there were no clothing in the dresser drawers. Now, Unit 107 was completely vacant. Hermosillo also received a search warrant for a storage unit that Lori had obtained. Now, they found a receipt. That's how they knew about this storage unit. They found paperwork relating to that in the unit. So then they obtained a search warrant for that storage unit. Now, inside that storage unit, they found winter clothing. They found blankets featuring the children. They found other items that belong to the kids. And we've gone over that storage unit, many times. He also said they tried to contact family members to see where JJ was, and the FBI was brought in to assist in the case. And Hermosillo says that Lori and Chad never called the Rexburg police to report missing children. Chad never returned any calls from police, and Lori never answered a phone. They obtained an attorney and refused to answer any questions, according to Detective Hermosillo's testimony today. He also said that after talking with Colby Ryan, Lori's son, that police began looking for Tylee Ryan. Now, Prosecutor Wood shows an exhibit of a photo of JJ, Tylee, and Alex Cox at Yellowstone National Park on September 8, 2019, and another photo from Lori's iCloud account showing JJ sitting on a couch from September 22nd of 2019. Now, Ray Hermosillo says that police have not found any photographs of Tylee taken after that one on September 8th of 2019, and no photographs of JJ Vallow have been found that were taken after September 22nd, 2019. There had been no sightings of either child after those respective dates. So signs of life, nothing found after that. Then Detective Hermosillo said he went to Kauai in January. He served Lori Vallow with an order demanding she produce her minor children to, in Rexburg within 5 days of January 25th. We know she didn't do that. A search warrant was also issued on Lori's rental vehicle there in Kauai and their rental townhouse, but there was never any sign that JJ or Tylee had ever been in Hawaii with them. Hermosillo said he went back to Kauai in the middle of February and served Lori Vallow with an arrest warrant on February 20th, 2020. When Lori appeared in the Hawaii courtroom, he was asked, was Chad in the courtroom, which he answered affirmatively, yes, Chad was there. And then they start talking about June 9th, where Detective Hermosillo says he went to Chad's house in Fremont County, Idaho, to serve the search warrant. Hermosillo said when Chad was served the search warrant, they knocked on the door. His son was there. Then another son came out. They led them to a room that Chad was in. Chad came out of the room, and he was instructed that He could stay on the premises, but he would need an officer to stay with him, or he could leave the home. And Hermosillo indicated that Chad went and sat in a vehicle in the driveway after calling his attorney. Hermosillo said Chad was on the phone, sitting in the driver's seat of the vehicle as police were serving the search warrant on his property. Hermosillo said Chad continually looked over his shoulder and he was talking on the phone, and then he would look back over his right shoulder. Chad got out of his vehicle at one point, and the detective said he went to stand by Chad. He said from where Chad was standing, he kept looking over his shoulder towards the pond area on the property. Hermosillo said the FBI evidence recovery team showed up at Chad's house around 9 a.m. and the team had cadaver dogs. They worked the entire backyard. Areas were marked off, and a particular area of interest was found right under the tree by the pond. Hermosillo said that under the tree there was a 4x2 area of sod, which was shorter grass in the area of an area that had longer weed growth. The 4x2 area stuck out based on the greenery around it being larger, longer. And the evidence recovery team began digging and methodically removing the dirt in that area. The team then discovered 3 large white rocks in a row while digging, and those rocks were removed, and underneath they found some thin wood paneling. So that paneling was removed, and detective indicates that he could then smell the odor of a decomposing body. Said he has been around decomposing bodies on multiple occasions in the last 19 years that he's worked as a detective, and he's covered plenty of suicides and unattended deaths where the bodies were decomposing. So he recognized the smell once the wood paneling was removed, and the the evidence recovery team moved away more soil from that area, and then they saw a black plastic bag with what appeared to be a round object protruding through the dirt. The team discovered white plastic underneath the black plastic, and the crown of a head was exposed. Small body, tightly wrapped in black plastic, covered in duct tape, was then discovered. The body was placed into the back of the coroner's vehicle. This was around 11 a.m. that this occurred. The coroner brought the body to the Madison Memorial Hospital, where it was placed in the morgue. Hermosillo said before noon he assisted Sergeant Wheeler in placing Chad Daybell into custody. And then he says he helped excavate north of the pet cemetery in Chad's yard. And when asked what the pet cemetery was, he said there was an area where they buried dogs and cats there on the property. And then the court went into a brief recess at that point. When the recess was done, Ray Hermosillo was back on the witness stand, and he said around 1 p.m. the FBI evidence recovery team found a mass of burned flesh and bone in the pet cemetery. The team removed the mass from the ground. Hermosillo said security guards were placed at the property, and the search continued the next day on June 10th. The evidence recovery team placed this mass in the back of the coroner's vehicle, and Ray Hermosillo said that there was a melted green bucket that the burned flesh had been placed in, and under the bucket was a partial human skull. The remains were placed into a bag and put into the coroner's vehicle. And Ray said he and other officers then went to Madison Memorial Hospital to pick up JJ's body, and they went to Boise with the remains. Ray began discussing the autopsies and said that he was in the room with other officials. He said that the medical examiner grabbed a sharp instrument and cut down the middle of the black plastic bag. He then says that he observed a small child in red pajamas. He said there was a red pajama shirt and pants along with Skechers socks. He said that they had Skechers written across the toe, a white and blue blanket that had been placed on top of him. and he said there was an amount of duct tape covering the body on the head, arms, and feet that was noticeable. His head had a white plastic bag over it, an expandable type of a trash bag, and the duct tape was tightly wrapped from his chin to forehead area, several layers tightly wrapped. Said the duct tape was covering the child's mouth, and his hands were folded about chest high. He said he could see the child was J.J. Vallow, and his wrists were bound with duct tape. His ankles were also bound with duct tape. The cross-examination started, and John Pryor, Chad's attorney, started to question Ray Hermosillo, saying that his initial encounter was not recorded on body camera, and he questioned him about that, saying, and because detectives don't normally wear body cameras, and John is stressing the importance of recording the interviews and how important it is, and Ray Hermosillo agrees. He says he spoke with Melanie Boudreau on December 3rd of 2019 and was asking for information on the location of the children because police were significantly concerned about their whereabouts. Prosecutor Wood objects to many of Pryor's questions, saying they are beyond the scope of the preliminary hearing, and Pryor says he's trying to learn information that is appropriate. Judge Edens called a 5-minute recess so that he could do some legal research. And after the recess, Pryor continued the questioning, and Ray Hermosillo was talking about the time he and other detectives spoke with Melanie Gibb. Hermosillo said, he's the lead investigator and Lieutenant Ball is the supervisor of the investigation. Now, John Pryor asks Detective Hermosillo about his conversation with Chad Daybell on November 26th, and he asked if it's possible. Chad said he didn't know Lori as well as Alex, and Detective Hermosillo said that's not possible. John Pryor asked him if he recalls every single date and time in the investigation, and Ray Hermosillo answers no. Then Pryor asks Hermosillo about JJ's school record, where Hermosillo said police originally believed that JJ last went to school on September 23rd of 2019. John Pryor asked Hermosillo about the hundreds of videos and photos that he referenced earlier that morning, and John Pryor asked if those videos had been provided to Rob Wood. Hermosillo said numerous videos had been uploaded to YouTube and other platforms by members of the community featuring the children, and he said that there's a significant amount of people in Fremont and Madison County interested in the case. John Pryor then started asking about the apartments where Lori Vallow and Alex Cox lived. There were 3 separate units, and Ray Hermosillo said Unit 107 was vacant, as we heard earlier. And Ray then said that Lori Vallow's, she lived in Unit 175. John Pryor asked Hermosillo about surveillance, and Hermosillo said it was not recorded. Hermosillo says around 15 to 20 hours of surveillance was done at the complex. John Pryor then asked Detective Hermosillo about how Chad Daybell was parked the morning the search warrant was executed on his property, and said he had been, John Pryor now speaking, had been to Chad's house 6 to 7 times. Hermosillo said he had been out there 15 to 20 times and last was there during the last search warrant. Hermosillo said remains found in the pond area were about 6 to 8 inches under the ground, shallow, and said that there was the statue of a dog at the pet cemetery and there was a circular fire pit. John Pryor asked about homes near Chad Daybell's property, and Detective Hermosillo said that there is a residence catty corner from the Daybell's residence, where Emma Daybell, Chad's daughter, lived at one point. John Pryor states that there are 5 homes around the Daybell property. John Pryor asked Detective Hermosillo what interviews were recorded, and then he said, after he took a minute to look at his notes, that he was finished with his questions, and at that time the judge asked Rob Wood if he wanted to do a redirect before lunch, and no, he decided to do it after lunch, so he took a 1-hour lunch break, which they're on now, and court will convene at 1 p.m. Again, we will cover this. I will bring you updates, and then of course we'll discuss live tonight everything. But you can watch this on the Judge Eden's channel that I gave you in last night's live, or you can watch it on East Idaho News or several other streaming, like Law and I always want to say Law and Crime Network, and you can watch it live streaming. But I'll be back with more updates. If you found this update helpful, I'd love it if you'd share it and get it out there. It would help the channel, and I would appreciate that. But I will bring you more updates later on, and I'll be watching along with you. Have a good one, guys. Stay safe. Bye-bye.